Joe Tranquina knew very well how it felt to be homeless and destitute. Born the sixth of 11 children, Joe's parents died when he was very young. Caring for himself on the cold streets of Chicago was far from easy. Perhaps it was this lived experience, combined with an unwavering faith in God, that inspired Joe to dedicate his life to helping others. Reverend Joe, as he became known, studied the gospel in earnest. He would share God's word at street meetings in Chicago. On Sundays, Joe and his wife Ray held Bible classes for children and adults. At night, Joe attended Bible college. It was here that he heard about the increasing need for missions and missionary work in North Dakota. After much prayer, Joe and Ray felt God's hand leading them to answer this call. So, they headed north.
In 1935, Reverend Tranquina took his family and 4 children from Chicago and went to Candu, North Dakota, to minister mainly to Indians, but also to non-Indians around that area. And they were there until 1941. And then he was led to go into Grand Forks and set up a mission and service center. And he worked on that as the founder and director of the mission until his passing in 1967. And of course, all that time they were providing food and medical supplies, meeting medical needs, and bedding for the night, especially cold nights. You know, they can get down to minus 40, and then along with the presentation of the gospel. He routinely worked at the mission 16 and 18 hours a day.
By 1946, the mission had assisted nearly 1,300 men, women, and families. From its early days, the Grand Forks Rescue Mission and Service Center was a nonprofit institution providing services at no charge. The mission got support through free will offerings, donations, and contributions from people from all walks of life. 8 decades have passed, and the mission's legacy continues. The mission has moved several times. Services have expanded, and the faces around the building are different. Yet our plan and purpose are the same now as the day the doors opened. We are here to serve. Stop by Northland's Rescue Mission today, and you'll discover some of the critical services we provide. Essential resources for men and women, a warm bed, hot meals, showers, clothing, and personal care items. One-on-one support from our advocacy team, who help clients find employment, set personal goals, and work toward permanent housing. An in-house addiction support program. Specialized resources and limited shelter for families. Daily meals and monthly food boxes for community members. Weekend meals for local elementary students through the backpack program. And a mobile food pantry, which brings food assistance to rural communities in our region. Our programs and services are carefully designed to meet needs as they are today in our community. But our philosophy has its roots back in 1942 with Reverend Tranquina and the Grand Forks Mission. We are here to serve the least, the last, and the lost. To empower people experiencing homelessness, housing instability, or food insecurity to live more stable lives. The most important part of this work is you, the men, women, businesses, and churches who devote your time, money, and prayers to keep the mission going. When Reverend Tranquina came to Grand Forks, he saw a large community of caring people around him. He knew God would bring them forward to help those in need long after he was gone. And here we are. Thank you for 80 years.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. All right, on behalf of the Northlands Rescue Mission, welcome to the 2022 Mission of Hope Banquet. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it very much. My name is Steve Brekke. I am the chair of the Northland Rescue Mission Board. And this is a very special evening. It's great to see 68 tables we had that were showing support for the mission, which means so much, especially on the 80th anniversary of the mission. And doesn't everything look nice tonight? Doesn't it? Let's give Sue and her staff a round of applause for doing it. I stopped by here yesterday and I asked them, how many items are we going to have to put up for the auction? They said 170. 170 people were kind enough to donate to help support the mission, and that's because of all of you. This would not be possible if it wouldn't be for everything that you do by providing your time, treasure, and talent. So again, thank you, and on behalf of Mission, I'd like to give you all a round of applause. Thank you. Now, before we get started, did everybody see the video? And all summer long, I got a chance to watch the painting of the building. I mean, there were chips flying when they were sandblasting, and you know, each time you'd go by and you'd say, have they made any progress? Have they made any progress? And wow, it looks nice, doesn't it? What a nice asset to downtown Grand Forks. So job well done, job well done. Before we get going, I would also like to call, our board members don't know this. I didn't tell them I was going to call them up here. Will our board members for the mission please come up here? There's a reason for it. Come on up here. Everybody who's on our board, come on up here. Amy, Darren, Claudia, Julie, Rob, Dan, Pastor Kirk, and Nydia. Okay, so you're kind of wondering, why did I call them up here, right? Well, there's a reason, there's a rhyme for this story. But anyway, I wanted you all to see these individuals that are volunteers. We got a great board. They come with their time, treasure, and talent to help out the mission to make Grand Forks a better place for people in need. And I want you to see their face so you know who they are, and we're very thankful to have them. But let's give them a round of applause for all they do too. Thank you. So what does that lead me to? That leads me to this. Last year, when I got up here, I talked a little bit about how you can help, right? How can you help? How can you support the mission? Okay, and I just mentioned you can help with your time, treasure, and talent. Well, last year when I mentioned, hey, you know what, we might need some help on the board, and if there's anybody interested, please get in touch with us. Well, guess what? It worked. We got somebody new on the board that came, and that was Claudia. So I thought what I'd do this year, since I'm on a roll, is not necessarily for the board, but you know, times right now at the mission, we could use time, treasure, and talent, all right? On Monday evenings, I serve meals every Monday with my, where are you, Sam and my daughter Sam and my son-in-law Dave. We do that on Mondays. But I've been doing it for about 3 years. But the amount of meals that we are serving now has increased immensely. I would say it's doubled. You all seen our styrofoam packets that go out each day, okay? Food is short. Food is short, but also we could use some volunteers to help. I know a lot of you do volunteer, a lot of you do support us with your time, treasure, and talent, but there may be a lot of you that are new here this evening that might be the first time to learn a little bit about the mission and what we do as a great organization. So I thought I'd throw it out there, and that's why they are all up here, so I wanted you to see their face in case anybody's interested in helping all the people that volunteer, whether it's their treasure, time, or talent. If you're interested, these people got name tags on, and if you'd like to visit with them about it, they'll put you in charge of the right people to get in touch with to help. So again, thanks. That's why I called you up tonight, so thank you. All right, so now I hope next year when I come back I can say, hey, we did it again. You know, it's kind of like the old sales pitch. You got to go 4 or 5 times before somebody catches on. Well, that's how it kind of happened for me. I remember Bob Stocker, I don't know if Bob's here, but at our church at Sacred Heart, he'd all send out an email or you'd see and you say, hey, are you ever interested in volunteering at the mission, coming serving some meals or things like that. And, I'd always think about it, but he kept sending out an email and kept asking you. So I kind of thought, if you keep bringing it up, eventually people wear out a little bit and they'll want to help. So that's kind of my philosophy. I'm going to try that out, all right? But anyway, before we move on to a lovely meal that we had, I'd like to call up Pastor Kirk for the invocation, please.
Let's pray. God, in days like this, when the snow and the wind and the cold slow us down, help us to see this as a beautiful gift so that we may have our eyes opened, our imaginations sparked, and we notice people. Thank you, God, in this moment tonight, when this meal really is an occasion of transformation. It is not just the building of the Northland Rescue Mission downtown that was whitewashed, but all of us have been washed in a word, in a love that really doesn't let us go, so that we really are freed by a beautiful spirit to take care of our neighbors. And we find to our surprise that the very people that we serve give us everything that we need to be reminded that we are your people now and forever. So thank you for all the people who come through the doors of the rescue mission, all of the staff, all of the people who continue to support this ministry in a way that really has grown and deepened and made a difference in this whole region. Thank you for leadership and all those people who do even the smallest of jobs. And God, once again, we thank you for making us your own, all of us given a home. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Now enjoy the lovely meal that's been prepared by the Alaris Center for us. And then we'll be back in about a half hour with our program, which I'm sure you'll all enjoy. We've got a great program for you tonight. All right, I'm back. I promised to keep this on time, so please continue to eat. It's 7:45, and we're going to start the program, what I think you all are really, really going to enjoy, and that's why we're here tonight. So I'd like to introduce our Executive Director of the Northlands Rescue Mission, and like I said last year, from my hometown of Warren, Minnesota, Sue Shirek. Come on up, Sue.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us again this year. 80 years, older than me, 80 years. That says a lot about the foundation that built the mission, the faith that built the foundation of the mission, and the goodwill and the faith and the hard work and the beliefs of everybody who has passed and who has continued to do the work at the mission. So Steve and I were talking in between during the meal about the legacy of 80 years. And I know we have at least two former board members in here that I'm aware of. So can I have all former board members please rise? Rick, Nancy, who else? Ah, yes, Carol, Dwight. Thank you for being part of the legacy of the mission. Then, I really need to thank my staff, because they have worked so hard since the pandemic started, and it doesn't matter what I ask of them, they just continue to keep working really hard to make a difference, not only for the people who stay at the mission, but for the people in need in the community who come to our doors seeking all kinds of services. So can I have my staff please rise, and could I have you give them a round of applause for all their hard work? couple people deserve a lot of extra recognition for helping get all this put together. The first one is Matt Collings, who does all our marketing, all those newsletters and stories that you get in the mail, all the stuff that's on the tabletops. He has spent countless hours, and then I call him up and say, hey Matt, I need you to change this. And so Matt, thank you so much for your work. And the second one is Corinne Nadeau. Corinne is in charge of our backpack program. So right now she's busy making sure that over 1,100 kids get food for the weekend every single week during the school year, and to make sure we have people coming in to get those bags packed, and to make sure I have an order placed to get the food in so that people can pack the bags so that the bags can get to the kids at school. On top of that, she has been working diligently to get all the silent auction stuff put together, and on top of that, she has been working to help get volunteers, food, and everything else we need lined up for next week because it's Thanksgiving. So Corinne and Matt, thank you both very much. I think if this went on for one more day, they would not answer my phone calls at all. So I'm very grateful to everybody. But you know, our staff has done an incredible amount of work. We actually changed our tagline to say we're more than just a shelter. Because the work that we are doing has changed so drastically in the last few years. We're not just a place for men and women to come and stay, and for our clients to get meals and some clothes and stuff like that. We are a place for people who are teetering on the brink of homelessness in the community to come to gather resources and maybe get help to transition into a more affordable apartment. We are a place where people from 4 counties, Pembina, Walsh, Grand Forks, and Nelson counties can get a food basket because we take our food pantry on the road to give people food. And where we've expanded our food pantry hours, we're open from Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, Wednesday night, 10 to 7. And we're a place where people who come to us who are struggling with mental illness and addiction can get some help 5 days a week, thanks to a partnership we have with Agassi Associates who are here tonight. And we're so thankful for that partnership, for Murray for writing the grant, for Tanner for working with our clients, and we just are so thankful to you. We even changed our mission statement, and it's in your program, and it's been up on the board. And our mission statement now says, empowering people experiencing homelessness, housing instability, or food insecurity to live more stable lives. This is about empowering people, not running their race for them, but giving them the tools, the encouragement, sometimes a little bit of a swift kick when they need it, to really focus on getting back into life, living a better life, sometimes having what they never dreamed they could have. You know, I never know what I'm gonna say before I come up here. And today has been just crazy busy. And I just kind of said a prayer this morning asking for the words. Because this morning at 8:30, I was also speaking to some little tiny kids in a local elementary school. While I was there, talking to this little group of kids sitting on the rug in their classroom, I was trying to explain to them about Friday food. Friday food is what they call the backpack program in their school. And I was there as a community representative to talk about community and what we do in the community. Well, you know, there were kids picking their nose and a little boy pulling his shirt over his head and somebody else who said, "Do you have a dog?" But in the midst of all this, and then somebody else said, "Oh, well, the dog you did have, what was their name?" And I'm like, oh, this is how my head goes all the time inside. But this little girl, it started out, I asked what they like about Thanksgiving. And she said, "I like that it's a feast." And I said, "Oh, I do too." And she's one of those kids that raised her hand about everything. And pretty soon she says, because I was trying to explain how, you know, there are kids and there are families in this town who don't have food to eat. And I said, you know, and this isn't like my kids. When my kids were little, they'd come home and say, "There's nothing to eat around here." And there was food. There was meat, and there was potatoes, and there was vegetables, but that wasn't what they were looking for. They were looking for snacks. And this girl said, "I eat a lot of snacks. And we eat out at restaurants a lot too." And I'm thinking, cool. And then we started talking about how hard life was getting for all kinds of people right now. And she said, "Yeah, my mom's working a lot of extra hours now because we're having a tough time." And a little later on, I talked a little bit more about a few other things, and I was talking about the fact that we now are sheltering homeless families. We're renting some of our apartments across town so that we have shelter for homeless families. And I said, this is really important because we want everybody to have a place to call home, and I don't want people sleeping outside, and I don't want people sleeping in scary places, and I don't want families having to sleep in their cars. And she said, what's wrong with that? And I knew at that point this little girl was homeless, living in her car. This is Grand Forks. And we have, at some point in any given school year, up to 140 homeless kids. We have kids who are hungry. We, the mission, are feeding 1,100 kids every week. Plus, we have a couple of partnerships in the community who are feeding even more kids. We have seen the number of food baskets that we are putting out every week just grow and grow and grow. And a matter of fact, it's really quite sad because 2 days ago, I think it was, we had to put a sign up on the door that says, "We don't have any more food in the food pantry till Friday." No more food till Friday. We have a lot of people who are hungry. You saw that fancy stack of styrofoam containers out there? That's how many takeout meals go out the door every day at the mission. Every day we have people who come to the door at noon and at 5 o'clock to get a hot meal. And that's how many meals our staff are preparing and sending out the door every single day, 7 days a week. Our number of clients in-house has gone down. We are having people only stay 28 days because we're moving people up, we're moving people out, they're getting on with their life. But there are a lot of other people that we're trying very hard to serve who are living on the fringes, who are living paycheck to paycheck, who are struggling every single day to make ends meet. So we're more than just a shelter. We're trying to help people in the whole spectrum of homelessness, from outreach to housed, and everything in between. And I have a really good staff, and that's what they do every day, every single day. But we couldn't do it without you. When Steve talked about time, talent, and treasures, we couldn't do that without you. We couldn't do it without the people who paid for the tables that you're sitting at today. If you had a table that was sponsored, Jack and Joey Muse, the City of Grand Forks, the Craries, Ashy Insurance, Edward Jones, Jim and Brenda Sondriel, McFarland's, Retracts, Rob and Jody Troyer, and then this whole list of silver sponsorships that's in here. These people paid for you to be here today. They brought you here to hear about the work of the mission, because it really does take more than just the mission to make this work happen. I'm a firm believer in God, and I know that He guides everything we do, all day, every day. We wouldn't be here for 80 years if He didn't. But you know, I have a sign up in my house somewhere, I don't know, and it says, the last line is, trust in God, but lock your door. You have to have faith, but it takes more than that. It takes all of us working together to make that difference, to make that change. And so we do this little thing at the mission for the last few years, and it's about the people in our community who make a difference. So I am going to list off some people, and when I call your name, I'd like you to come up on the stage and do the thing like the board did and stand up here and we'll clap for you. This is called the Hope is the Heartbeat of the Soul Award. Excuse me. This award is proudly presented for compassion and dedication in recognition of selfless and meaningful contributions to the clients of Northland's Rescue Mission and to the Grand Forks community. So the first one I'd like to present to is Rachel Eider. So come on up. Rachel and Kevin have been wonderful landlords in the community. And so my staff gets to pick out who a lot of these awards go to. And Bobby said whenever we need help from a landlord, Rachel comes to the rescue.
Oh my God. Oh, thank you.
Just stay up here. She has been a great landlord who has taken risks on people and who treats people like people, and we're proud to work with her. This one is for someone who's in Bismarck, and so I'm going to save that one. Greenberg Realty. Do I have a representative from Greenberg Realty? Rita, come on up. So our realtors in town have done a great job of supporting the backpack program, and you know, we don't know what we'd do without people who can come in every week and help pack, and we've handed out this award to a lot of different organizations that have helped, including the Board of Realtors, but Greenberg's goes above and beyond. So. You knew I had to cry somewhere in here, right? Is Peggy Palmer here? Peg, come on up. So Peggy's husband, who many of you know of or know the legend of, is Al Palmer. And Al Palmer was instrumental in bringing the Veterans Memorial Park to our community. He was a very powerful force to be reckoned with. He was a board member, and one time I said no to him, and everybody on the board went, we don't think anybody's ever said that to him before. But I don't think what people know. Al was a board member, but Al and Peggy hired a lot of our former clients, or even while they were clients, to do work for them. They took risks, they believed. And things don't happen just because Rachel is here, because Kevin is part of that too. Things don't happen because Al was on the board. It's a partnership, and Peggy is part of that too. They took risks, they took challenges, and treated our clients unbelievably. Took them out to the farm, had them working out there, gave them opportunities that they never would have had. Last year at our banquet, Al was sick. He was in the hospital. And a year ago today, Al passed away, but we wanted, Peg, we want to honor you. All right, do I have someone from Prairie here? Do I have anybody from Prairie? Awesome. Because I don't want to have this Greenberg Prairie thing going on here. But the same thing that I said about Greenbergs, I can say about Prairie's. They have stepped up to the plate. They have helped with the backpack program. They have been that organization that steps up when we need volunteers with the backpack program, and we're just very thankful for you. Is anyone here from United Lutheran Church? I can't see, but so United Lutheran Church is the first church that stepped up and said, we want to adopt a school. You know, we're right across the street from Phoenix. And how about if we pack backpack bags, we buy the food, we provide the manpower, and you just come and pick them up and take them across the street for us. So 1 week a month, every month during this school year, United Lutheran Church packs backpacks for Phoenix Elementary, buys the food, provides the manpower, and they have set an example for other organizations in our community who we feel can do the same. So thank you to United Lutheran Church. Can I have our friends from St. Paul's Episcopal Church please come forward? So, you know, St. Paul's is our neighbor across the street, and we're a little bit challenging as neighbors sometimes. We just are. And St. Paul's has been fabulous. Pre-COVID, they opened up their space so that we could have Thanksgiving dinner for the community there. They have stepped up, and you know, the other day I got a call from Eileen Sherlock, and she said, we have some money and we want to buy you some stuff. What do you need? And they went out to Sam's and bought us $400 worth of hamburger because we really don't have very much food. And they have treated us with grace and kindness and mercy, and whatever we have wanted to do, they have tried to be the best and most wonderful neighbors. And we're just very thankful for all those years of Thanksgiving dinners and everything in between. So thank you. My staff is so excited for this one, they can't wait, because this one was a unanimous award winner. Sometimes volunteers come in and they're magical. They are just magical. And this is one of those people. He loves everybody at the mission and everybody loves him. He tries to memorize 2 people's names every time he tries to come in. He brought popcorn the other day as a treat, homemade popcorn, for a treat for us. He is just the most gracious and kind and wonderful volunteer. Rick Gessler, will you please come forward? We have had to keep this one a secret for so long, and it's so exciting. Wow. Thank you. Here you go.
Wow, what a surprise.
So, I'm going to give this guy 2 because he deserves them. So, you know, we're in between some crazy holidays right now. We had Veterans Day, which was a crazy holiday for this organization, and we're coming up on another crazy holiday because every year the mission does this Thanksgiving dinner, and we don't have enough ovens to make all the food, all the turkey. So if you listen to me on KNOX, I've talked about this wonderful place in town that cooks our turkeys for us. And so this was a tradition started by the previous manager, and when this new person came in, he said, I want to carry on the tradition as well. So on Monday, we're going to cart a whole boatload of turkeys over to Texas Roadhouse because we're planning on serving 1,000 meals on Thanksgiving. 1,000 meals. And Texas Roadhouse will be cooking those turkeys for us. So, if I could please have Mr. Jacob Guthmiller come to the front. Thank you, sir. There's one for you, one for the Texas Roadhouse, because you know what? Veterans Day, they provided free meals for all veterans, and I went in there in the middle of the afternoon and it was packed, and what a wonderful thing. We also have a certificate for Ryan Berg, who's the manager who went to Bismarck, and I've talked with him. He's so excited that, do you want to take it for him? I can give it to him. Awesome. That you carried on that tradition, and we're just so thankful that you are helping us out with that. Thank you. Can we give them all a round of applause? And before they sit down, can I have former award winners please rise, and can we give them all a round of applause? Jack and Joey, whoever else is out here. Thank you, guys. You're welcome. Whoops. Okay, my heart feels better. So, I want you to see a little bit of the impact of the work that happens. You've watched this person's story progress through the last couple of years, and now we're going to watch a video that tells a little bit more about Jason's story and Tanner and the wonderful work that Agassi Associates are doing at the mission.
My name is Jason. I am a peer support specialist and a janitor at the Northlands Rescue Mission. I've had experience with addiction, 37 years of substance abuse. I was dealing with addiction at the age of 14. Started out drinking, using marijuana. Eventually I got into the meth and the heroin, and I ended up in the Grand Forks County Jail. And an inmate came up to me and asked me if I wanted to be in the treatment program at the Northlands Rescue Mission, and then, so I signed up.
Tanner Grimsley, I'm a licensed addiction counselor at Agassiz Associates. So Agassiz Associates is actually a really cool facility. You can, go there for mental health and see an individual therapist, but also can see somebody for substance abuse treatment. It was a while ago. I was thinking about just ways to kind of incorporate everybody and just working with underserved individuals and people who are struggling with certain things, and be able to access treatment where they normally couldn't. So I was like, well, where could we do that? And that's where the jail program kind of came into play.
I had an interview with Tanner Grimsley, the one that we work with right now at the Northlands Rescue Mission. And we were in there, I was filling out my eval. And I remember this very vaguely, that after I was talking to him, I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna pass on this.
He was fairly resistant, and I just kind of said, give me 1 day. Just give me 1 day. If you don't like it, you can go back, you can sit in your cell, you don't have to come here anymore.
So I sat and debated for about a minute, and and here I am today. When I was doing my treatment program while I was staying at the mission, when I was a client, on my one-on-one with Tanner, we were talking about maybe he wants to get something going on at the mission, and of course I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. So I ended up graduating Tanner's treatment program. And so it was like a month or two after, I'm not quite sure, but then Tanner got a hold of Sue and we started doing our programs at the mission with Tanner.
We ended up just kind of doing a Wednesday night kind of, shoot from the hip and see who would show up and who would be here. The first night we had like 6 or 8 people. We were like, okay, well, good first night, right? It's new. And it's been pretty consistent. And then after the first year of doing it, we've had a pretty good turnout in numbers. And we now, we're here and we're present 5 days a week.
My role in the peer support, and I advocate for Agassiz, but I go around to the clients Monday through Friday when the times are, and I just round up the clients and try to get them to go to the meeting. And we pretty much ask them what brought them to the mission, if they have any drug or alcohol or mental health issues, and then we'll start talking. And then when they keep coming back, we ask them, what's your goal for today? What's your schedule look like? For instance, there's this one guy, I kept bugging him for, probably a month and a half. He kept on saying no. And I said, just come and try it. And he's like, Jesus, I will then. So I brought him to the meeting, and after the meeting, he's like, why didn't I go the first time you told me? And now I believe he's got like 65 days of sobriety in. So it's very cool what we're doing here.
We have people all the time who will say, wow, I am so glad that this is here. I had no clue that this was going to be so beneficial, and they'll leave and they'll tell other people, and they come and they sit down and they have the same experience, and so it's been really awesome to see that kind of spread, from Jason.
I never thought in a million years I would want to help people. I really didn't even like people at the time. When I was using, I didn't care. And there's days, every Monday I'm so excited, I can't sleep Sundays. It's so hard for me to sleep because I just can't wait to meet the new clients that come in over the weekend and just share my story with them. And every client that comes through these doors, I've walked in their shoes. I've been homeless. I've slept in apartment buildings. I've slept in people's garages, couch surfing, and I relate to them very well. This was a calling for me. I think this is where I need to be. Tanner gave me the blueprint to succeed in life, and I use it on a daily basis. It's just staying on schedule, picking goals on a daily basis. I never thought I'd be where I'm at in my recovery today. I can wake up, come to work, go home, I have my own apartment, I can turn on the TV, I can lay down in a bed, I can take a shower. Just having my family, I got my family back. There's just so many gifts of recovery.
So a lot of people say, but what can I do to help? What can I do? So before Steve and I give a final word to you before our speaker, we want to play one more video that shows what an organization in town here has done and why they support the mission and how they have helped. And hopefully it inspires some of you to give of your time, talent, and treasures. So we have a video from EERC, who deliver our backpack meals to most of the schools every Thursday.
Hi, I'm Ryan Klabrick, Principal Geoscientist at the Energy and Environmental Research Center. Since 2017, EERC team members have volunteered and donated to the Northlands Rescue Mission, working together to sort clothing donations, clean up the front landscaping, and even organizing a supply drive for the mission that raised over $10,000 worth of necessities. But our most humbling contribution has been the continued support of the backpack program. Community hunger is something I care deeply about, and is an issue that resonates with the team here at the EERC. I am continually impressed by my coworkers' willingness to volunteer and help with the backpack program. We are proud to have helped the mission grow its backpack program into additional schools over the years, providing meals for over 800 children in our community. Children who do not have enough to eat are able to have food throughout the weekend because of this program and those who invest in it. I feel fortunate to work with a diverse and motivated group of people whose interests lie not only in the work they do at the EERC, but in their community as well.
Thank you, EERC. So this is important. We need your help. We, the mission, cannot do this by ourselves. We have been supported for 80 years through grants, through donations, through volunteerism, and we need your help to keep this place going, to make this gift of gratitude, this gift of generosity continue for years so that people who are in a tough spot can get out of it, so that we can help people get back on their feet, to live better lives, to become the Jasons of the world. We need your help.
You know, Sue, I'm usually not one lost for words, those of you that know me. I'm kind of lost for words tonight. Just watching that video of Jason. You know what the mission, we changed our mission statement. Perfect example what the mission does, Jason. Couldn't be prouder of that man. It's so fun to visit with him when you come into the mission and see what he does and the difference he makes in people's lives. But damn, that's special. And the appreciation he has for the mission. And I can tell you many stories. I was thinking this morning, I was doing a little praying, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about a little bit on some of my experiences? And I've ran into a couple of them along the way, but I don't know if I need to say anymore after that video. That pretty well speaks about the difference that the mission can make in people's lives. And with your help and your support, we can continue to do that. And that's what's really, really neat. And like Sue said, we can use any of your help to support. You can have what your treasure, time, or talent. It all makes a difference. And I think I said this last year too a little bit. It doesn't matter what dollar amount you want to give. Every dollar makes a difference in somebody's life. Every minute that you want to volunteer makes a difference. Every talent that you have and you want to donate it, it makes a difference. And we can make a difference in people's lives. And just closing, a lot of us in here may know who Earl Strinden is, right? He was a longtime CEO of the University of North Dakota Alumni Association and Foundation where I work now. And Earl had a lot of sayings, right? But one of the sayings, I remember when he retired from the Alumni Association, he gave me his exit book kind of that he wrote. And one of the sayings that he had in there, and I always mention this to people, and I'm going to quote Earl, and bless his soul, rest in peace, Earl. He had one saying that he always said, let's make the woodpile a little higher than when we came. Really simple, isn't it? So that's what we're trying to do, make the woodpile a little higher. That's what I've got.
So on your tables, we have the traditional baskets with some envelopes. If you're old school like me, you write checks. If you're a little more updated than me, there's some sheets that have QR codes on them, and you can zap those QR codes with your phone. You can go to our website and donate. You can drop something off at the front door of the mission. If you need to pray about what's important for you to give and what you're able to give, we're all about that. We just know that we can't do it without your help. We thank you for being here. We encourage you to give. We encourage you to take home the stories you hear from today and share them with the people that you think that they will resonate with. Because this isn't just about the board, the staff, the volunteers. This is an us thing. This is an us helping to make life better for someone else. We can do this, and we thank you.
Thank you.
So now, I'm only 1 minute behind. That's pretty good. So, I have the pleasure and honor of introducing our speaker tonight. After paroling prison on December 13th, 2008, Tony Hoffman started living out his dream with his addiction behind him. Because, sidebar here, it's not the addiction you can't let your addiction define your life. Life is meant to be lived, and we're meant to be forgiven, and there's no need for you to be labeled with what you were. Tony is a former BMX elite pro and placed second at the 2016 World Championships in Medellin, Colombia, in the Masters Pro class. Tony coached women's elite pro Brooke Crane to a fourth place finish at the 2016 Rio Olympic Games in Brazil. Tony has presented on the prestigious TEDx stage, and his viral Goalcast video from prison to the Olympics has been viewed more than 12 million times. He is the founder of PH Wellness, a drug and alcohol addiction treatment facility located in Southern California, which uses his Fit for Life sobriety model using fitness and a world-class career placement center to increase long-term recovery outcomes. Tony is an author and one of the most requested mental health and substance use speakers in the country, traveling over 200 days a year to share his inspiring story with various audiences. Tony's life motto is, "The story we create about the experience is more than the experience itself." can I ask you to please welcome to the stage Tony Hoffman.
Let's take this out of here. I need Sue to read my bio everywhere I go. It sounds so good. Pardon my voice. 2 days ago, I didn't have one, so I'm a little raspy, but I'm glad I have a voice. Thank you to the mission for allowing me to be here. And most importantly, thank you, Sue, for bringing me to a location where I can share the full truth of how my story developed into what it is. Traveling 250 days a year, I speak to a lot of healthcare organizations and a lot of schools, and they don't want to hear the part of my story that I don't get to tell often, that I would love to tell, that I get to tell tonight. So thank you to the mission. In August of 2005, I was going up to my apartment that I was selling drugs out of, and I got a phone call from one of my childhood friends who gave his life to Christ and moved 6 hours south of where I grew up in the middle of California. He leaves a voicemail on my phone, and he's in tears and he's crying. And he says, "Hoff, I need you to call me right away. This is really important." So I called him back because he was crying. Otherwise, I wouldn't have called him back. I related so much to that. I just didn't even really like people comment that I heard, because at that time, I just didn't really like people either. So unless there was a real reason for me to call you back, I wasn't going to do it. But the fact that this guy was crying was the reason that I called him back. So I called him back, and as I'm walking up this staircase, he says, "Hoff, you need to pay attention to me right now." So I stopped walking up this staircase to my apartment, and he says that God gave me a vision. He says, "You were in this vision that I saw." And he said, he showed me he's going to give you 3 significant chances. And if you don't stop doing what you're doing right now, you're going to go to prison after these 3 significant chances take place. And he said, "Hoff, you could just stop." And I was like, "Bro, I can't just stop. You know how it is. I'm back on these pills. I was addicted to opioids, eventually heroin." And I hung up the phone. Didn't really think much of it, but I remembered it. Back in 1996, I'm 12 years old. At 12 years old, I was one of the top athletes in the middle of California. My first dream was to go to the NBA. I told my dad I was going to graduate from the University of Michigan. After I graduated from the University of Michigan, I told my dad I was going to get drafted to the league. By the time I got to 6th grade, the high school coaches were coming to watch me run point guard. The middle school coaches were coming to watch me run point guard. It was really clear by the time that I got to 6th grade that the short white kid from the middle of California could play basketball. But when I got to 7th grade, some things changed. Some things changed that people couldn't see, and I wasn't talking about it. In the mid-90s, we didn't talk about mental health, and we didn't encourage vulnerability. We didn't encourage vulnerability and opening up about our struggles and realizing that when we opened up about our struggles through vulnerability and we came together in numbers, that there was true strength there. So in the middle of, at 12 years old, I'm in middle school, and I'm showing up to school, and I can't get this thought that I need to kill myself out of my head. I don't know where it's coming from. The only thing I know is that I show up to middle school every single day, and I'm extremely uncomfortable with myself. I try to stop these uncomfortable emotions from occurring, but the more I tried to stop these uncomfortable emotions from occurring, they just kept coming back. And the more they kept coming back, the more I started to think to myself that something was wrong with me. And something was wrong with me is what I thought to myself, because the peers that I went to school with, there's no way that they were going through what I was going through. It took me 20 years to figure out that one of the things that I was struggling with was social anxiety. See, when I showed up to middle school and all the guys and girls started clicking up and exchanging phone numbers and big groups of people started hanging out, I wasn't able to do that. I had this fear inside of me that would stop me from doing what everybody else was doing. So I started isolating away from my peers. It was social anxiety, but I didn't know that. And the more I isolated away from my peers and spent time by myself, the more I started to give life for this depression to start creeping in my life. And once the depression started stirring up in my life at 12 years old, I didn't want to go to basketball practice anymore. At 12 years old, I didn't want to get out of bed and go to school anymore. And one of my biggest struggles was this experience that I was having with my father. Before the basketball games would start, I'd sit down next to all my teammates. I'd sit next to all my teammates, and I would look to the end of the gym doors. As I'm looking to the end of the gym doors, I'm having a conversation with myself. I say, come on, Dad. Come on, Dad. You promised me. You told me you were going to get off of work this time. What I didn't understand at 12 years old is why my father, my hero, couldn't come through those doors to watch me play basketball. But I watched all of my teammates' parents show up. Jose's mom and dad came to every single game. Jason's mom and dad came to every single game. Jeff's mom came to every single game. Brent's dad not only came to the games, this dude's dad came to every single practice to watch us. My father was my hero. I didn't get to choose who my hero was. My brother, it's my mother. Me, it's my father. My father was my validating figure as a child. I was looking to my father to teach me how to fail. I was looking to my father to teach me how to win. I was looking to my father for inspiration, encouragement, empowerment, comfort, care, nurture, all of these things that would make me feel safe in an environment that sometimes don't make people feel safe. And because my father wasn't coming through those doors, I started to believe that there was something else wrong with me, and that is I wasn't good enough. If my dad loved me, he would show up and watch me play basketball. If I was good enough, my father would show up and watch me play basketball. See, what I didn't know at that time was I was about to do what every young person in this world does, and every single person in this room has already done for themselves. And that was create a belief system about who we are and what we're capable of doing in the world. And we come to this belief system based on the experiences that we have in our home, and then it's confirmed in the institutions that we're a part of. There's only two types of belief systems in this world. I can, I will, and I'm able. Or I can't, I won't, and I'll never be able. See, what I didn't understand at that time was that I can't, I won't, and I'll never be able is not true for any human being. We choose that for ourselves, and the unfairness of life, one of the unfairnesses of life is that when we create the belief system about who we are, our minds are underdeveloped and we don't understand reality and life the way we do as an adult. So we go into this childhood in our early teens and we create this belief about who we are as a result of these experiences that we're having in the world. I had no idea at that time that the story we create about our experiences, it's more important than the experience itself. Because the story we create about our experiences is why we do what we do on a daily basis. When I was a young kid, they said, stay away from kids who smoke weed and drink, because they're bad kids. Bad kids do bad things who can influence good kids to do bad things. Reality is, that's not even true. None of it. Not one piece of that's true. In 2017, I was about to give a keynote speech at a national conference on addiction and mental health. I got a brochure, and on this brochure before my speech, I was reading it, and there was a statistic on there that stuck out to me. It was about young people. It said 68% of kids who smoke weed, use vaping products, smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, or use other types of drugs. 68%, if they start before the age of 14, have been sexually abused. 68%. It is almost a guarantee if a young person is 14 or younger and is using substances that they are the victims of a sexual trauma. I looked back on my childhood when I knew this and I thought to myself, we have made so many grave mistakes as a society. Because when I was in school, those kids, they got kicked out. When I was in school, those kids were treated poorly because they're bad kids. The bad kids influence good kids to do bad things. The reality is, those kids are hurt. Those kids are already feeling broken. Those kids are already feeling displaced. Those kids already believe, I can't, I won't, and I'll never be able. And the systems of society have come in and said, there's something wrong with you. You can't, you won't, and you'll never be able, and you need to leave here. Because everybody else here, they're the ones that have everything that you should have. See, at 12 years old, I didn't know that sexual abuse isn't the only thing that creates trauma. So does emotional neglect. And I never even had a conversation with my father. I was struggling with my mental health. I was struggling with my relationship with my father and his emotional neglect. My dad was working 14-hour days so I could have Michael Jordan shoes, so I could have baseball equipment and soccer equipment that was better than everybody else's. What I didn't know at that time, because I never had a conversation with my father about this experience, was that my father was working 14-hour days so me and my brother could have more things than he had when he was a kid so we could be more successful. But my father didn't understand that I needed his time and his attention more than I needed the Michael Jordan shoes. At 12 years old, I told myself, if my dad doesn't care, why should I? Immediately, I can't, I won't, and I'll never be able. And my behavior changed. I couldn't focus in a classroom. I got kicked out of 7th grade for selling a girl weed. After I sell this girl weed and get kicked out of school, trying to be validated by my peers in an unhealthy way using self-limiting behaviors, my parents started making me go out to the BMX track with my brother. My brother was already racing BMX at this time. I'm 12 years old, and my dad says, why don't you try racing? You already got a bike. So I said, I'll try racing. So I started racing a bike at 12 years old. By the time I was 18, I was on the cover of the largest BMX racing magazine in the world. I was ranked #1 in the country in points. I was sponsored by Fox Racing, Airwalk Shoes, Spy Sunglasses. Companies that didn't sponsor amateur athletes were sponsoring me because they believed when I turned pro, I was going to be one of the best in the sport. And most people would have said, don't worry about Hoff. He's going to go off and race BMX and be super successful. They had no idea, though. When I took my helmet off, I wanted to kill myself. When I took my helmet off, I had anxiety struggles. When I took my helmet off, my depression was so bad, my senior year in high school, I had Saturday school every single weekend. If I brought my English teacher up here right now, she'd tell you the reason I came late to her class every first period or didn't show up was because I was a punk. What she didn't know was that the first drug I ever took to fix my mental health struggles, the discontention I felt within my spirit, was sleep. See, my mother and father were workaholics. They got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they came home around 9 or 10 p.m. We rushed dinner and they went to bed and they started over every single day. I didn't have these behaviors that would be modeled to me as a young person to develop these coping skills for these experiences that I was having. I started struggling with my mental health and I had to find a way to survive. Every single person in this room uses survival instincts to cope with their emotions that they're getting every single day. Some people, they unwind to a glass of wine. Some people, they get home and they go to the gym. Some people work out at the beginning of the day. What I found worked the best for me was just to sleep. If I was asleep, I didn't have anxiety. If I was asleep, I didn't have thoughts of killing myself. If I was asleep, I didn't feel depressed. And so sleep was the first drug that I took, and most people didn't know. I don't want to race BMX. The average BMXer makes $10,000 to $15,000 a year. You make more money flipping burgers at McDonald's than you do racing a BMX bike. And when I was a young kid, I thought life was all about making a lot of money. If I just had a big bank account, a nice job, a good-looking wife, a nice house, that all this discontention that I'm feeling within my spirit will just magically go away on its own. And then I found out that's not true either. So while I'm chasing money, I get offered $120,000 a year my senior year in high school to go work for this guy in California that was Entrepreneur of the Year of California at 23 years old. What I did with my social anxiety was learn how to build corporate computer networks. I had 7 computers and a laptop in my room while I was going through high school, and I was learning to build these domains that would be used at these large corporations. My dream was no longer going to the NBA. It was working inside a major corporation's networking closet, so I didn't have to see people because my social anxiety made it really hard for me to want to talk people face to face. Email worked great for me. So does text messages, because I don't have to have that face-to-face conversation. Before I get offered this job, I started hanging out with these folks, these kids that were just like me, struggling with their mental health, struggling with the trauma that was coming from at home. Well, then when I went down to San Diego before I graduated high school and I got offered this job, I came home and I put my gift away. My gift was one of 2 things that every human being needs to keep their mental wellness balanced. One, it's an activity that connects you with like-minded individuals. I always tell people, the catch is it has to be empowering for self and others. The other thing we need is a safe place to have a conversation. That's a place where we can go and discuss about whatever it is that we're experiencing, and on the other side, not experience shame and guilt for what we're talking about. The only thing I had was my gift that connected me with like-minded individuals. that empowered myself and others. It was my bike. But I put that away. And when I put that away, the only thing I had was this. I can't. I won't. I'll never be able. Waking up every single day hating who I was. Waking up every single day wanting to kill myself because I felt so uncomfortable and believed that everybody else in this world didn't have to experience what I was feeling. When I came home, got this job, I put my gift away and I started going to parties. I started going to parties and I'd see people smoke weed and drink. And I told myself, I don't need to smoke weed. I don't need to drink. I'm going to go down to San Diego and I'm going to make 6 figures. But I know this, the more I went to parties, the more I wondered. The more I went to parties, the more I hated who I was. Because I couldn't be like everybody else. And then the day came where I started smoking weed with my friends. I told my friend Steve, smoke me out, bro. I want to try smoking weed. I smoked weed for the first time. I couldn't stop laughing. I thought I was having a good time. But it didn't make me not want to kill myself. It didn't lower my anxiety levels. It wasn't helping my depression. But I promised myself I wasn't going to do it every day. Before I knew it, I was doing it every day just like my buddies. I went down to San Diego after I graduated high school. The job didn't work out, not because of me, because the guy I went to work for ended up being wanted by the FBI for stealing $28 million. He was a Ponzi scheme scam artist. My aunt knew his wife, and she connected me with him through this guy's wife, and she didn't know at that time. I found out many years later when I was in prison. My dad emailed me or sent me a printout of this guy hiding out in Spain and the FBI looking for this dude. So when the job didn't work out, I didn't know why it didn't work out. I blamed myself because that's what I did with the belief system. I can't, I won't, and I'll never be able. I quit and I came back to Fresno, Clovis, little city I grew up in, and I kept going to parties. I kept going to parties, and my friend called me one day, and he says, hey, I got this pill. We need to try this pill. I said, what is it? He said, it's called Oxycontin. I said, what's that? He said, I don't know. The guy we buy our Vicodin from, this opioid painkiller, he says he's out. He's got this new painkiller called Oxycontin. He said it's like Vicodin on steroids. You want to split one with me? I said, yeah, I'll split one with you. See, at that time, in the early 2000s, we thought because it came out of an orange bottle, it was safe. Then we found out that sometimes the stuff that comes out of the orange bottle is no different than the stuff that comes from the cartel. It's just packaged different. And because it was packaged different, we thought it was safe. Something interesting happened to me, though, when I tried Oxycontin. Something different than any other drug that I'd tried did. See, when I tried Oxycontin for the first time, instantly, I didn't feel depressed anymore. I didn't have one thought of killing myself, and my anxiety was completely gone. I thought to myself, I'm fixed. You mean to tell me all I had to do was take half of this green pill? And I'm fixed? Why can't the doctors just give me this? I have energy now. I want to get out of bed. I feel normal. What I didn't understand was that's not even real. And that's the trick, is that when we find people, places, and things that give us that, that's not actually the truth. That's us using something with an ill intention to try and fix something that was designed to be fixed in a totally different way. And I had to go through these life experiences to learn and understand the spiritual mechanics behind what was actually happening to myself at this time. But this drug gave me the feeling that I thought that I always wanted. See, some individuals that don't struggle with addiction oftentimes think that addiction is a choice. Those types of individuals will tell me, I tried this drug, and I hated it. I never did it again because I felt so out of control that I would never do it again. And I say, well, what if I told you the way you feel on that drug is how I feel without one? The only time I feel like you feel is when I'm on a drug. When you're sober, I feel that way when I'm on a drug. And what I wanted was the same thing that you wanted, but what I didn't understand is the more that I got involved in these opioids, something different would be in my brain, the way it's wired. An addiction would come from my use. And once the addiction came from my use, I couldn't stop thinking about this drug. This drug kept taking control of every single thought, every single behavior. It started changing who I was. I promised myself I would never commit crimes. I promised myself I would never hurt anybody. I promised myself I would never do anything wrong. The only thing I wanted from this drug was to feel the way I believed everybody else felt in the world. 3 years after my first OxyContin, I made the worst decision of my life. I armed myself with a gun, and I went inside somebody's house, and I committed a home invasion robbery. It was one of our best friend's moms that was in the house. We held her at gunpoint, took her to her room, made her open up the closet, and we stole $14,000 worth of OxyContin out of that house. And the only reason we knew the OxyContin was in there was because our friend was stealing them from her. And then she found out, and she started locking them up. Well, this stuff that comes out of the orange bottle called OxyContin wasn't no different than heroin and fentanyl. The physical addiction that comes with these pills is so painful, it makes it extremely difficult for individuals to stop using the drug because the pain, when you watch somebody that's detoxing from this, especially if they don't have medical attention and meds to get through it, it's like watching somebody in a movie have an exorcism performed on them. It's gut-wrenching, the pain. And when she started locking them up, we couldn't get the pills, so we started going through these withdrawals, and it makes your mind go crazy because you know that if you can just get this pill or this drug, instantly it all goes away. At 21 years old, I made the worst decision in my life. One of the only regrets I have in my life was going inside that lady's house. I told myself when we left that house I would never rob somebody ever again. My co-defendants couldn't say the same thing. They kept robbing people. They kept robbing people and eventually ended up on the news. When they ended up on the news, the lady we robbed saw my co-defendant on TV, said that guy was in my house. 6 months later, the cops found out where I was staying. They raided the place, and they took me to jail for armed robbery. At this time, I hadn't seen my mother and father for 3 years. No family vacations, no Thanksgiving, Christmas, no phone calls, emails, nothing. I called my dad from Fresno County Jail, and I asked him for help. My dad gave me one of the biggest pieces of help he's ever given me, and the only piece of help, if he were to come up here and tell you, he said, I won't give my son no money. He got that attorney, and that's all he gets from me until I die. My dad paid for one of the top defense attorneys in the state of California to hopefully get his son back. My dad thought addiction was a choice, so if he just saved me from the consequences of this addiction, my dad believed that I would wake up to this idea that the consequences of 17 and a half years in prison for armed robbery far outweighed the fun that I was having with these drugs. But my dad didn't understand that the drugs weren't fun for me. The drugs were stability and safety. Even in the chaos that the drugs were bringing, my brain believed I was only in control when I was under the influence of this substance. So my deal went from 17 and a half years in prison to 5 years felony probation, 1 strike on my record, and 90 days in a treatment center. And I told myself that I was never going to come back to doing what I was doing because when Judge Nunez sentenced me, he said, Mr. Hoffman, if you come in my courtroom for anything, I'm going to give you all 10 years that I'm supposed to be giving you right now. Do you understand me? I said, yes, sir. I went to 90 days of treatment. I got out, and I went back to parties, but I was just drinking. I told myself, I don't got a drinking problem. I got a drug problem. Well, I knocked this guy's tooth out in a fight. 2 weeks later, I almost have to have my hand cut off in surgery. Turns out the human mouth is bacteria-ridden, and I didn't clean my hand well enough when I knocked this guy's tooth out. And I couldn't clench a fist, couldn't bend my elbow, couldn't rotate my arm. I didn't know what was happening. So I drove to the hospital in the middle of the night, and the triage nurse sees me, and she says, oh my God, you should have been in surgery days ago. Look, and I was like, why? She goes, look at your arm. It's fire engine right up to your bicep. She said, this infection in your knuckle has shut your whole arm down. She said, it's gonna get to your heart and kill you. She goes, why didn't you come in here sooner? And I said, well, I thought it was gonna go away. Fellas, guys, we know how that works. We just think everything's gonna go away on its own. Well, I thought that myself. She says, we gotta get you into surgery. So she takes me in the back of a room, they give me surgery, they send me home with a Vicodin prescription. I'm 21 years old, living with my mother and father. They're trying to help me, quote unquote, get my life back together. My mom says, I'm gonna give you these pills, 1 pill every 4 hours. Just like the bottle says, because you're a drug addict, you can't follow instructions. My mom thought drug addiction was a choice. So she simply believes that the bottle says 1 pill every 4 hours. My son is a knucklehead who wants to know what it's like to take 4 at once. What she didn't know was the fentanyl they gave me at the hospital kick-started my opioid addiction, where I only believed I was safe and secure under the influence of this drug. So when they administered that drug, it made me obsess about what was in that bottle. And my mind just said, wait for your mom to leave the keys out. When she leaves them out, steal them, get them, and leave. 3 nights later, that's exactly what happened. I grabbed the keys, opened up the closet, grabbed the Vicodin bottle, and I left. And over the next 2.5 years, my life would spin completely out of control. In the fall of 2006, my best friend, my only friend, left. He always gave me a place to stay and food to eat. After I started using meth and crack cocaine and started putting needles in my arm and injecting heroin and these pills, nobody wanted to be around me anymore for obvious reasons. I walked to his house one night, and his dad answered after I knocked on the door. He said, "Mijo, you can't stay here anymore." I said, "What do you mean, Alex?" He said, "Mijo, somebody called me and told me you're stealing credit cards. You need to get your life together." I said, "Alex, I'm not stealing credit cards." I really wasn't. I said, "Can I talk to Nate?" He said, "Yeah, Nate's in his room." So I walked into Nate's room. I said, "Hey, bro, I need a sleeping bag." He said, "Why, Hoff?" I said, "Bro, I'm sleeping on the street tonight." He said, "Hoff, call somebody. Get your phone out and call somebody." I said, "Bro, I've been calling people all night, man. I got a prepaid phone. I'm running out of minutes. Please, just give me a sleeping bag. I'm about to go sleep at Clovis High School, the high school I graduated from in 2002, in the baseball stadium under the announcer's tower. I remember I walked out of Nate's house. I got this sleeping bag. I'm walking down the driveway. I hang a left towards the high school. He lived about 150 yards from the tennis courts. I get below the street light outside his house, and I hear his voice. "Hoff." I turned and I looked at him. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Look at yourself, bro. What are you doing?" I said, "Don't worry about it, Nate. I got it." That's what we all said. Don't worry about it. We got it. For the next 6 months, I slept on the street, behind dumpsters so people couldn't find me, in dirt fields so people couldn't find me. If I was lucky, I got a Motel 6. If I was lucky, I got somebody's couch or somebody's floor to sleep on. The only reason I'd get a couch or a floor is if I had money and drugs on me to share with people in that house at that time. I had never felt so alone, so misunderstood, so hopeless, depressed. The one that got me the most was confusion than I did while I was sleeping on the street. And then in 2006, in November of 2006, I got pulled over one night. I get pulled over one night and the cops say, "You on parole or probation?" I said, "Yes, sir." They said, "Get out of the car." I hid this needle between my butt cheeks, so as they're searching me, they can't find this needle. And they tell me that they know I'm buying methamphetamines from this apartment complex down the street. And I said, "I'm not buying meth from anybody over there." And they're like, "Yes, you are." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not a meth addict." I was like, "Look at my eyes. They're pinpoint. I'm a heroin user." I was like, "I'm not going over there." And they said, "All right." Well, they let me go. Well, the next night, it's Thanksgiving night, 10:30 night. I picked up these 64 pills with this guy I was with. And this cop pulls us over. Comes up to the car and he says, "Is anybody on parole or probation?" I said, "No." Cop goes back to the car. I hide these pills between my butt cheeks because I know I'm getting pulled out of the car. I'm on felony probation. He comes back and he says, "Mr. Hoffman, why'd you lie to me about being on probation?" I said, "Well, I thought you said, 'Is anybody on parole?' I'm not on parole. I'm on probation." And he says, "Get out of the car." So I get out of the car. He searches me. He doesn't find the pills. He puts me in the back of this cop car, 10:30 p.m. Thanksgiving night. He says, "I'm going to take you to jail. I'm going to call your probation officer right now for you lying to me." So he starts calling my probation officer. She won't answer. He calls her a handful of times. She doesn't answer. He says, "Mr. Hoffman, it's your lucky day. I want to take you to jail, but I can't because I need your probation officer's clearance." So he lets me go. The next day, nothing happens. The following day, I'm with my girlfriend at the time. She's driving. We're going by Fresno State. There's 2 cops in the street with their windows down talking to each other. We pass by them. We get through this main street called Shaw. We're driving, and all of a sudden I see lights in the back of the window, and I'm thinking, what the heck? What do we do? So this cop comes up to the car. As she's coming up to the car, this female cop, she pulls the tag off the rear of the license plate, and she comes up to the side, the driver's side window, and she says, "Do you guys know that the tags are fake on this car?" And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to jail today because I didn't know what was going on. We borrowed the car from this guy. And she says, "What are we doing?" We told her, "We borrowed the car, we were Christmas shopping." She goes back to the car, she comes back, and she says, "The car hasn't been registered in 5 years. And now I know for sure I'm going to jail." She asked for a license. My girlfriend didn't have a license on her at that time. She goes back to her car. She comes back to our vehicle with, in California, what we call fix-it ticket. It's a yellow ticket. You got to go and change the things that are wrong with the car, and then everything's fine. She doesn't ask if anybody's on parole or if anybody's on probation. She gets back in the car and leaves. And immediately I said, "That was the 3 chances that Adam was talking about." And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Adam told me I was going to get these 3 significant chances, and if I didn't stop doing what I was doing before these chances took place, I was going to go to prison." I said, "I think I'm going to prison soon." And I was like, "I've been pulled over 3 times in 4 days." I was like, "That's pretty weird. And every time I should have been arrested." January 21st, 2 months later, I go to church. I'm not a church person, and I don't care about God, and I don't like Christians, and I don't like anybody that represents God. So the fact that I go to this church January 21st, 2007 is a unique experience for me. I get invited by this drug dealer that I was buying pills from in the west side of Fresno. Turns out this drug dealer was a minister in this church. Now, hear me out for a second. A flaming bush spoke to a guy. If that can happen, I promise you God can use a person who sells drugs to do the work that needs to be done for him. If it wasn't for him inviting me, I wouldn't have went, because my idea of church was it's a scam. When Ray invited me, though, I thought to myself, I think I need to go. I went to this church. There was an altar call. I went up to this altar call reluctantly because of my social anxiety, but his wife made me go up there. The pastor calls on me, and I walk up to him, and he puts his hand on my forehead, and immediately I start crying. And I don't know why. I start crying, and I'm like looking at this guy in the eyes, and he says, "God has favored you your entire life in everything that you've done." And immediately I lost my hearing. I couldn't hear anything. And I see these 3 guys that are standing next to him, and they're like crying. Like, I've never seen people cry like this much. And then all of a sudden, all I could hear was, "Praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus, hallelujah. Thank you, Lord, praise Jesus, hallelujah." And it was like surround sound, and I was like, I believe, this is real. What's happening to me right now? This is so weird. What's happening? I believe. And then like he lets his hand off my forehead, and like, whoosh, I'm back. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa, what in the world was that? And I just was so overwhelmed with this experience, I kept crying. Well, my girlfriend went up there, and he told her a bunch of things. And I remember afterwards, I said, "He only told me the one thing, but he told you like 3. I'm such a competitive person, I was bummed that he told me 1 and her 3. I'm like, that's not fair. But she says, no, after he said that, he also said you don't have to worry anymore. God's going to remove you from your addiction. I couldn't hear. I said I lost my hearing. I didn't hear him say that. And I thought to myself a miracle had taken place. But 2 hours later, I was in a Toyota pickup with this guy, Jason, that I grew up with, shooting heroin in my arm. And I thought to myself, well, I guess it's not the miracle I was hoping for. I really wanted something to take away the withdrawals and the pain that would come from me when I couldn't get this drug that would make me keep going back to it. January 21st, 2007, I gave my life to Christ. That night, I also broke into a house that was up for rent. On January 22nd, I woke up at 2 p.m. and there was 4 cops in the room with their guns drawn on me. They arrested me and violated my probation for armed robbery. 30 days later, I was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. I remember when I got to Wasco State Prison, I was on D yard, cell 254, I had the top bunk. I walk into the cell block at 10:30 at night. I go up the staircase, cut across the tier. I get to cell 254. Open it up, meet my cellmate Dizzy. Close the door, start making my bed. I start making my bed, and after I make my bed, I jump up on the bunk, and I'm looking up in the ceiling. At 11 p.m., they flip the lights off. Before they flip the lights off, I read this quote that somebody written in the ceiling with a pencil. It says, "Be careful what you think, because your thoughts become your words. Be careful what you say, because your words become your actions. Be careful what you do, because your actions become your habits. Be careful what you make a habit, because your habits become your character. And your character becomes your destiny." And I kept reading it over and over and over. It made so much sense to me. The stories we create about our experience are more important than the experience itself. Because the story we create is what we think, which becomes our speaking, which becomes our doing, which becomes our habits. And once we have a habit and it's instinct, you're going where you go, whether you believe it or not. And I thought to myself, if this is the reason that I'm in here, then I can use this quote and completely re-engineer it, starting backwards, and I can change the results in my life. So I started ripping through this Bible, and it made no sense to me, but I got to this part where it said, "Those who are trusted with little will be trusted with much." And I thought to myself, what does that mean? See, what it meant for me as I continued to start praying and meditating and trying to make a conscious contact with this thing that I believe completely saved me from my suffering, but also had this greater purpose in my life, was that I was supposed to do 4 things for him. 1, get back on my bicycle and race professionally. 2, go to the Olympics. 3, start a program for kids and call it the Free Will Project. And 4, become a professional speaker. But I didn't know how I was going to go from a prison cell to the Olympics, because at that time there'd never been a person who started in the prison cell and made it to the Olympics. But those who are trusted with little will be trusted with much. And what it meant for me was, at 23 years old, I can't brush my teeth every single day. And if I can't brush my teeth every single day, how am I going to ever make it to the Olympics? And then I started to realize that all these insignificant things that most people think don't matter actually matter big time when you're talking about plugging it into faith. See, faith is what creates the intention behind the work that we do, and the vision is something that God gives each and every one of us for the work that's been assigned to us. And I had realized that I'd been assigned these 4 tasks, and that moving forward, my life purpose was to create or bring people into his kingdom, but I was going to do it different than the way that I didn't like seeing it, which was the conventional way in church. So I started brushing my teeth, making my bed, and organizing my stuff, taking control of all these little things. I get transferred to this prison called Avenel State Prison. And I'm ripping through the Bible still, and it makes no sense to me. I see this black guy sitting under this TV every single morning, studying the Bible. He's got his headphones in, and he's like dancing and laughing and having a good time. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy has the answers I need for sure. I see it, I feel it. So I go up to him and I start asking him some questions. And he takes his headphones off, he looks at me, he gives me the answer. I come back to him a few times, and then I said, "Hey, do you think I could study with you?" And he looked at me and he goes, "No." And I was like, "What? Why?" And he goes, "I study alone, youngster." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just keep asking you questions, no problem." One morning, I get a knock on my bunk. I open my eyes, it's Toby Wade. I said, "What's up?" He said, "Get off your bunk. We're going to study." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah. But listen to me, youngster. We got to do this my way. You don't get to do anything but what I tell you to do. And we don't take days off. You understand me?" I said, "Yes, sir." For the next 14 months, this man, the greatest mentor in my life, gave me 6 hours a day. Studied in the Hebrew, studied in the Greek, spiritual, literal, historical, kingdoms. This man's dad was a preacher, whose dad was a preacher, the brother was a preacher. This man knew the Bible more than anybody I'd ever met. And he gave me 6 hours a day. And this is a person that most people think should never see a day of light ever again, because he was serving a life sentence for murder. He never asked me for money. He never asked my parents for money. The only thing he said was, line upon line, young Timothy, it is important for you to root yourself in this word so you can carry the weight of God's calling when you leave this place. When I left prison, I was a completely different person. I was a completely different person because I was no longer discontent. I realized that the discontention that I was feeling was because I was out of alignment of God's calling. I realized that the discontention I was feeling was because I was so focused on self, I couldn't see that life was bigger than myself, and that the gifts that I was given wasn't for me, it was for other people. I was so discontent because I was afraid to tell people. I felt like killing myself and struggled with anxiety and depression, when in reality, I have those struggles, and so do a lot of other people in this room. And through my vulnerability, somebody else can stand up and say, you know what, so do I. And then I can talk about the things that I do and what God's given me to get me through it, and you might be able to say, I've never thought of that, let me try that. Or maybe you have something I need that helps me get through my struggles. I started to learn that I was trapped in this misconception of what life was. December 13, 2008, I paroled prison. 5 months later, I raced my first professional BMX race I'd ever raced in my life. I hadn't touched a bike in 7 years. I took third place. That first year, I won 5 races at the lower pro division. 1 year after being back on my bicycle, I picked up a microphone, not to travel 250 days a year, just to help people in my local county. My second year on a bicycle, I get invited to the Olympic Training Center by the United States of America to train with the top athletes in the world. I made 6 finals at the Olympic level after winning 5 races my first year and getting moved up to the Olympic level of racing. But in October of 2011, I blew my knee out. I blew my knee out and my racing career ended. And the doctors told me it's not going to be the same anymore. And I didn't believe them. I tried to make it work, but I couldn't make it work. And at the time, I was devastated because I felt so strongly when I was in that prison cell that God was telling me I'm supposed to go to the Olympics. It didn't make sense to me. I was like, I believed so much that what I was feeling, like this is supposed to happen and it's not going to happen now. But then I remember thinking to myself, you just got to keep brushing your teeth, making your bed, and organizing your stuff, and have faith that God is going to work this out and that this is actually happening for you and not to you. 6 months later, I started my nonprofit organization, the Free Will Project. We raised $2,500 our first year. And 6 months later, I started coaching BMX athletes. By 2016, my speaking, I'd become one of the biggest speakers in the United States for mental health and substance use. By 2016, my nonprofit organization was raising over $120,000 a year, giving away $40,000 worth of bicycles, $10,000 worth of skateboards. We were using action sports to work with at-risk kids. By 2016, I'd coached 2 national champions, 3 world champions, had 25 athletes from Australia to Bolivia. I became one of the biggest coaches in the world for the sport of BMX. And in July of 2016, my top female athlete, Brooke Crane, she calls me and she says, pack your bags, Hoff. We're going to the Olympics. In 2016, I became the first person to start in a prison cell and make it to the Olympics. I just didn't get there as an athlete like I thought I was supposed to be. I got there as a coach, like God wanted me to be, a servant. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about my gifts. It was about my abilities that He gave me, not for myself, but for Him. And since that moment, all I've been doing is carrying this microphone and telling the story of what God's done in my life, the restorative power of what surrender and repentance and grace can do for a person that's broken into pieces that society thinks can't change and can't do things with their life. I started my treatment center because I don't want to be on the road for 250 days forever, but right now God's telling me I got to do this. But my goal is to use the treatment center as my retirement plan. I'd like to work with just 20 people intimately as I phase out of speaking. I know they did the ask tonight, but I really just want to encourage each and every person in here to utilize your gifts. And that when we come together in a big room like this, that great things can happen when we all make a decision to give based on faith. And it doesn't have to be monetary. You've heard that all night. I truly believe that what we're about to come into in this country are some very hard times. And the things that get done in a very positive way are going to be those that are backed by faith. Those who continue to give with faith, even though everything in front of us says that we're in scary times or everybody's struggling. Tonight we come together in vulnerability. The story that we saw in that video, man, That's what it's about to me. And I hope that's what it's about for all of y'all. Thank you.
Well, that was awesome. All right. Matt, can you bring me up the tickets? So we have the raffle tickets, and we want to make sure that the winners from those packages get to take their packages home for them before they leave. And you know, I think some of you are probably curious just about what's going on in Jason's life now. And every year after the banquet, he says, next year I'm going to get up there and I want to say something. Thank you. 2 of each. And this year he's going to come up and share a little bit with you. And I just want you to know that Jason has been promoted. He's our head of maintenance, so he's a department manager. He got his driver's license back. He has his own place still. He's been sober for a long time now. He went on his first vacation ever this year. He's still a peer mentor. He's one of those employees who whatever you ask, they'll do because he cares that much about what's going on and about helping others. And Jason, wherever you are out here, you know we root for you every day. And so come on up and you get your chance to share a few words. So while Jason is making his way up here, and I know he's got tears in his eyes, and I can already see he's going, ticket numbers. If you have a blue ticket, the winning tickets are 449244, 449244, and 449270, 449270. The red tickets, 5668711, 5668711, and 5668740. And you can pick up your prizes outside. So Jason hasn't told me what he's going to say even. I have no idea. So come on up, my friend.
Hello, everybody. This is very emotional. I just had a big gift of recovery last month.
You got it. Breathe. You got it.
I remember when I was 11 years old, my dad would take me to Alter Hospital, St. Mike's, and he was a maintenance supervisor for 47 years, and he retired 10 years ago. And I remember him taking me inside Alter, giving me a tour of all the boilers, all the water pumps, and I always said, I always want to be just like my dad. And a month ago, I got the maintenance supervisor job. And it was something that I never, ever would have thought would have happened with my addiction. Let's see. And actually, I got a text this morning. I was working with this guy at the
mission. He's from San Diego. He was involved in gangs, drugs. And he messaged me this morning and said, "What's up, Jason? I just want to let you know, bro, Jesus loves you, brother, and God bless you." He goes, "You made an impact in my life, homie." And I said, "Thanks a lot, bro." He goes, "It was an honor to have you be the person to believe that I can take that step 3, bro. You were just what I needed at the time in my life, G. I pray God speaks to you through you to reach everyone at the banquet." So I just wanted to share that. And when I became a peer support specialist, it seemed like I really wasn't even doing anything until I was a janitor at the time. And they said, "Jason Gray, please come to the front desk. Jason G, please come to the front desk." So I walk up there and he said, "He's outside, he wants to talk to you." So I walked outside and he's like, "Jason, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. You had like 60 some days clean." And he goes, "What you're doing was the missing puzzle that the mission was missing." And it was cool to hear something like that. It feels like it's a dream. I just can't believe I'm even up here standing in front. Whoops. I'm sorry, but anyway, I wrote this letter. My brain is still kind of tumbling, but I added it up last night. So I got 33,514 days of substance abuse, and today I got 1,055 days sober. So I just want to start off by sharing a short story to give thanks to the people who made a difference in my life. I am so glad to be here today. It's almost like a dream. I never thought in my lifetime I would be standing here in front of people telling my story. I was on a downward spiral and not knowing if I was ever coming back. It wasn't until I was incarcerated for a short time that I realized that I did not want to live and continue this path of destruction anymore. And when I got out, I did not have a place to stay or go until I thought of the Northlands Rescue Mission. I walked over there with some doubt, still in my mind, do I or don't I want to go in there? And I paced that sidewalk 1,000 times up and down that block, and I'll never forget it. And deciding if I really want my lifestyle anymore. And I tell you folks, it was the biggest, best decision I've ever made in my life walking in there. I can't say enough about the mission. Sue, who inspired me to stay and still inspires me every day with her kindness, her knowledge, and her faith she sees in me to be the best person I can be. She's a great boss, by the way. I also want to thank Tanner. Without him, I would not be here today. He kept me focused, positive, and motivated to stay on track and get me the treatment that I needed, and he was a godsend. I can't say enough good things about Sue and Tanner. God, of course, the mission. Except they saved my life, and that's why I'm here today. I like the name Rescue Mission because they rescued me from a dark place that I don't ever want to go back to. Lastly, I want to thank all you donors who donated, whether it's dollars, food, clothing, volunteers. It all matters. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you, and God bless every one of you. And then when you guys leave here today, I would like to be standing by that door just to shake your hand and say thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I go sit down?
This is the work that we do. This is the difference that you can make in someone's life. So on behalf of all of us at the mission, we thank you for being here tonight. We wish you and your family and friends a God bless Thanksgiving. And please say a prayer for those people who don't have a roof over their head, a meal on their table, a place to call home, and a sober day. So thank you for making a difference. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support, and God bless you all.